SureDog.com here with Greg Jackson, the head coach for George St. Pierre, the UFC's victorious welterweight champion. Greg, a lot of people expected George St. Pierre to be able to run over Jake Shields because of the kind of style matchup. It was much more difficult than people imagined, especially on the feet. What's your takeaway just hours removed from the Shields and St. Pierre bout?
Well, George's eye was pretty badly injured. At least he told me that in between rounds. And George is a very timing-based fighter, and so when one of your eyes is injured, your depth perception gets off pretty significantly, and it's very hard for you to time the shots because it's hard to see where they are coming. So I felt he did really well considering he fought with one eye. I'm really proud of him for fighting through that. So we'll try to get better and do better the next time. But yeah, I really feel the injury played a significant role.
Do you feel that for a fighter like George St. Pierre, you mentioned him being a timing-based fighter, expand on that a bit. How does an injury like that affect George St. Pierre in a way that it might not affect another fighter?
Well, some fighters, I mean, if you're a pressure fighter getting in people's chests, as long as you know where the guy is, you're able to roll off shots and get inside. George is very good at exactly timing when to take you down, when to counter shot, when to open up. And because you can't, when you have one eye, your depth perception is very off, so it's very hard to tell. First of all, you can't see anything on this side of the body. It's very hard to tell exactly where the things are that you want to either make your angles on the outside of or put things together with. And it's hard to do unless you're that kind of, or it's hard to explain unless you're that kind of fighter. But he is a timing-based fighter. Depth perception does play a big part in it, and I think he was also really intent on knocking Jake out with big overhand rights, and we needed to balance it up a little bit. But other than that, like I said, I was just proud that he fought through the injury.
There was a very specific focus from St. Pierre in the fight on the overhand right. He threw it time and time again, both before and after he was poked in the eye. How big of a piece of the strategy pre-fight was that, and what sort of significance did it take on as the fight wore on for George?
Well, George found early success with it. I mean, because Jake does stand so tall with that jab, you always want to look for something that comes over the top on it. Jake was actually able to do a really good job of kind of shrugging his shoulder, like almost like a check hook position, but he didn't check hook, he just kind of checked out. So he did really well defending it. It landed very hard a few times. Jake's got a great jaw on him, that's for sure. So it was able to do a lot of damage, but because of, I think, George's just being off a little bit, he wasn't able to land it every time.
How would you assess the changes in strategy after the eye poke? What were you telling George after his eye was injured that you maybe wouldn't have told him beforehand?
Well, I was mostly just calming him down. I wanted to balance his attack on the left side a little bit more to get to that left head kick. He did land one good left head kick that was able to drop Shields, which was good. But yeah, and then just making sure that he stayed calm and encouraged and focused, because again, when someone's trying to knock your block off and you're not at 100%, you're kind of with one eye, it can be pretty scary.
How impressed were you with Jake Shields? Because it seems that people have either jumped into the camp of George St. Pierre underperformed in a way that allowed Jake Shields to look good, or simply Jake Shields really excelled past what people anticipated. What was your take on Jake Shields and the stand-up skills he demonstrated?
I thought Jake Shields was much improved. He's got a great camp that he comes from. He has a lot of great teammates, and so I thought he was very improved. I thought he put together some great combinations, and he fought very well.
People have already taken to criticizing George St. Pierre for this performance. People wanted to finish. People thought this might be the kind of style matchup that permitted that to happen. Going forward, do you think that there's something that George can change that in the wake of an eye injury, for instance, could allow him to get that finish? Do you see anything that could have happened tonight that could have led to the finish that people wanted, even in the face of adversity like the eye poke?
I think that it's hard to tell because that injury is so significant. When you actually can't see out of an eye, it really is significant. And again, it's one of those things that if you're sitting at home and you've never been really poked in the eye and had somebody at Jake Shields' level come after you and try to knock your block off, it's hard to understand what that means, because most people actually aren't fighters or haven't dealt with that situation. It is a pretty significant situation in my point of view. So I think that he was just missing a little bit. He was just off a little bit on some of those big shots, and I feel like if he would have had both eyes, he could have landed those shots, and it could have done a lot more damage.
One of the tricky situations whenever a champion faces adversity is people will often use that as rationale for perhaps why a fight didn't go as anticipated, but there's also much lore that is constructed from people overcoming adversity. To look at someone like Anderson Silva being able to submit Chael Sonnen in the fashion he did seemed to add significant lore, despite the fact that he handily had lost most of rounds heading into it. What do you say to someone who says George St. Pierre should have knocked Jake Shields out anyway? He's supposed to be the best fighter in the world, and the best fighter in the MMA world wouldn't have been daunted in that fashion by an eye poke.
I would say that A, you're ignorant. B, you're fighting Jake Shields, who's a phenomenal fighter. And if you think, I'm not sure where people get this idea that Jake Shields is like this punching bag. The guy's an amazing fighter. Hey, everybody that is supposed to have sprawled and killed him, he's actually taken out. So I would say that you don't understand the nature of combat. You don't understand the opponent. And if you did understand those two things, you would be impressed by George fighting through something like that with an eye injury, and you would also give a lot more respect to Jake Shields, who's not anybody's punching bag.